Good evening. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I am so excited. It's been a minute since I've done a podcast because everybody knows I am in the middle of campaigning. But I was so excited when I found out that I was going to be having youth on my screen tonight because I'm a mom and I love the kids' input. I mean, we are getting old, guys, and these kids right here are going to run the world in some form or fashion. So we have to give a seat to the table for them, especially when it comes to the topic we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about climate change. That's a huge topic globally, right? We have flooding in Florida. We've got tornadoes happening in places it shouldn't happen. We had snow in Texas. I mean, it's 90 degrees and it's June. I mean, climate change is definitely affecting us globally, and it's a huge topic, especially for these coming up, definitely in our community right now. So I have the pleasure of having some wonderful kids. I think all these kids are going to schools in Urbana. They're public school kids, and we also have a homeschooler, Davin. And Davin is, I'm going to introduce everybody, but Davin, I'm such a pleasure to have you on my show. I thank you for everything that you guys believing in me as a person that I am. And Davin's from Sunrise Movement of Frederick. So this is exciting to have him on. And then we have Ratika. And Ratika, she's attending middle school. Are you in middle school right now? And then we have Ashan. He's going to high school. And then we have Vrishba. He's going to kill me, guys. So we have Vrishab, and he is an elementary student, correct? And so
I'm a rising 7th grader at Urbana Middle School.
Excuse me. A rising 7th grader. And these kids are pretty. I'm going to fill interviewed at the end, but I'm going to let Davin introduce himself, and then we're going to let Ratika introduce herself. Ishan Rishabh introduce himself. Okay, so go ahead, Gavin, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Davin Ferris. I use he, him pronouns. I'm 16, and I'm a youth climate justice organizer and hub coordinator with Sunrise Frederick, which is the local chapter of the national climate justice organization, Sunrise Movement.
Ratika, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ratika. I'm a rising 8th grader at Urbana Middle School. I'm 13, and thank you so much for having me on this show.
All right, hello. My name is Ishan Anand. I'm a rising 9th grader. I'm going to be a freshman in high school, and I'm going to be talking about electric transportation today and how I want to make a change for it towards the climate. I've done some things in school academically, and I've earned the Presidential Award of Excellence. And I want to use my academics, and I want to use my passion to make a difference in the world.
Hello, I'm Vrishab Kluru, a rising 7th grader at Urbana Middle School. Today, my topic is going to be about economics and costs of climate change affecting the low-income people. And I wrote a poem for PTA Reflections about how I can change the world by planting more trees. This is about global warming and how I can fix climate change. This won the Frederick County Award of Excellence and the State Level Award of Merit. I also made a DIY low-cost oxygen concentrator with my friends. This is the one that won the Power to the People Award in the Kid Museum Invent the Future Challenge. And I also won 2nd place for the Frederick County Middle School Science Fair.
Thank you for that, Davin. You might need to take their numbers down.
FYI,
Getting in touch.
FYI, I don't have a phone yet.
We will remember that. Well, let's talk about climate change, you guys. So I'm Davin. Could you tell us first what your organization does and how did you get started in this organization and things like that? Tell us what you do and why you got started and how and what you guys done at the state level, what you did at the local level. Tell us about your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sunrise Movement is a national organization that works for legislation about climate change and climate justice. The key piece of legislation that we're mainly known for is the Green New Deal, which people have heard a lot about, some true and some not. But the basic idea behind that is that climate change can be an opportunity for economic growth by creating a job mobilization to overhaul our infrastructure system and create green jobs, which is really important to help address the loss of jobs that would otherwise happen by phasing out the fossil fuel industries. So viewing climate change as an opportunity for not only economic growth, but also addressing social justice, as Rashad will talk about, I'm sure, that to address climate change, you really have to incorporate a wide range of social inequities, that you cannot address one without the other. And so that's key to Sunrise organizing. The structure of Sunrise is such that while it is a national organization, we operate in local hubs all across the country, more than 400 based out of counties, cities, and schools. And in 2020, 2 years ago when I was 14, I got involved with Sunrise Frederick. I first heard about it at an event that a friend was hosting called a Green New Deal launch party. It was part of a national Sunrise campaign, and the idea was basically for students to form small temporary groups called strike circles, which would then organize a local demonstration on Earth Day. And because this was coming up on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, the goal was to use that milestone to raise awareness for Sunrise and the need for climate justice. The Earth Day action ended up being canceled because of the pandemic, but my group pivoted and became a hub, Sunrise Frederick. And that brought more prolonged and legislative goals. And since then, we've continued to organize locally for more than 2 years, working for local legislation, coordinating actions and demonstrations, and then also working directly in elections with candidates, endorsements, and voter registration.
Thank you for that. So you guys hear, it's really important that we get people involved locally and at the state level, because that's how you make real change, right? So we can make change in our community, but if you want to grow that change and see it actually manifesting and doing things in our community, you have to start getting it to a more political state level so that people will advocate for what you're doing in the community to do great things. Excuse me. So now we have Ritika. Ladies come first, okay? Sorry, guys. But Ritika, I have to say, I'm so happy that she's here. I'm happy all you guys are here, but I know something about Ritika's program that I had the opportunity to do Holy in Urbana, and they have the battery program. So Ritika, I want you to discuss the battery program, because that's something that's happening locally right now in Frederick that I hope that the kids in our city schools can take advantage of and get implemented into their schools. So tell us a little bit about that.
Of course. So what Recycle My Battery is, it's a nonprofit organization created by kids my age. I'm a part of the executive board, and my job is to outreach. And what I do is I try to help spread the word about Recycle My Battery to other people. And I connect with other businesses to place battery bins so that people can easily replace and recycle their batteries so that it doesn't end up in landfills and pollute the environment.
That's super cool. It looks like we might have lost Terralyn, maybe faulty connection issues. Yeah, well, I guess we should
Give her
a minute.
Yep.
Oh, here we go.
Terralyn, you're muted.
Sorry about that. You have the battery program. Now tell us how are the batteries actually recycled?
The way we recycle our batteries is that in every place, whether it be a school, a store, or community centers, we place battery bins. And with that, people who walk by or are part of those kind of communities can place their used batteries in those bins. And those batteries are taken to recycling area so that the parts of those batteries can be used for new things like new batteries or other things that they can be recycled into. We're planning on expanding Recycle My Battery by placing more battery bins worldwide so that everyone can recycle their batteries.
And that is a good initiative. I got to be honest. I was throwing my batteries in the trash can. So I'm just going to be transparent, okay? So now I know that these batteries cannot be thrown in the trash can. So because of meeting you guys, I don't put my batteries in the trash can anymore. I just put them in this little box and hoping that I can find a bin like you guys have so I can put the batteries in there. It's all about educating our community. If we don't know, we don't know, right? But if you get educated by that and you still do the same thing, then we have a problem. So now that I'm educated about this battery program, I know that I am not putting my batteries back in the trash. I don't put my batteries in the trash anymore. I just put them in this little box, and hopefully I can find one of your bins or get my own bin, because I heard that you can get your own bin. So Ratika, tell us how we can get our own bin if we wanted to do so.
So you can just search up Recycle My Battery online, and in there'll be a website. And I think you can find all the information you need. I think we have areas where you can also place batteries, like the YMCA in Frederick has a battery bin, and some schools have it too. I don't think you can necessarily get your own singular battery bin, but you should look for places near your community where you can dispose of your batteries, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, but what you can do for us even bigger, if you just put that if website in the little chat, and I could display for people so they can see it.
Sure.
Ishan, we're going to ask you a question about hybrid cars. Now, I'm going to be honest. I went to look for a hybrid car, and when I seen the price, I was like, yeah, so I'm going to get one of those. And the biggest topic that we are talking about now is hybrid cars are important, but we have a lot of people that can't afford them. I know at the state level, we have been discussing what we could do to help people that can't afford hybrid vehicles. If you could please tell us what's the difference between a hybrid car and an electric car, and which is better and why?
All right, so there's a few differences. So as you said, electric cars can be very expensive, and the average price for an electric car up front is about $50,000, which is a lot of money, of course. So when you look at that aspect, it seems like a lot. But if you look on the lower end of electric cars, they can sell for as little as $25,000, which is on the lower end for a car. And if you look at it in general, electric vehicles have a lot less maintenance costs than hybrid vehicles and gasoline vehicles. And they also come with tax rebates and things as such that really decrease the cost.
And this is very true. That's what the dealer was telling me. Like, there's some tax rebates that you can get off the cars. But I'm definitely going to keep pushing that issue about electric cars and how it's important and how we can see people seeing that tax rebate. I mean, when you go to a dealer, they're not seeing that money right there. It's just like, no, I'm looking at the top dollar, what I'm putting down. And that tax rebate is still not convincing me. So it's just like, we've got to find a way to get more cars off the street because of how it's affecting our climate. But if they do have that option, how we can make it affordable for our community to have these cars. Because let's be honest, the DMV area, a lot of people commute. I mean, we commute, especially in Frederick. We have a lot of people that we live in Frederick, but we don't work in Frederick. And so we are commuting every single day to work. So thank you for that. We have more questions. So I'm going to move to Rishab. And we are going to ask you about climate change, and that's environmental justice. This is huge, about how climate change is affecting our low-income communities and how they are building highways in the middle of low-income communities, how they're building industrial buildings by low-income communities, how they are throwing pig waste into the waters and they're going into low-income communities and affecting their water and the air they breathe in. I mean, I've watched many documentaries, I've seen it over and over again, but I want you to tell me how climate change is affecting the low-income communities and what you're doing about that.
So first off, I just want to add on to what I was talking about, the oxygen concentrator that me and my friends were working on. So while we were working on it, we thought of how this would affect low-income people, because during the COVID-19 pandemic, this highlighted the utilization of oxygen concentrators. This made them mostly unavailable, and if they were available, if they're lucky enough to get them, it's extremely costly. And this is what led us to make it low cost to help the people with low income. So this also leads me to my next discussion. So if climate change brings in floods, like rising sea levels, like Ritika's talking about, first their home is gone, then they don't have a job. So this leads to displaced populations, and anyway they're not earning enough to buy a new house, and if you need to get a job, you need a car. But wait a minute, aren't these cars like $40,000 now? So that really affects these poor people and how it's gonna work with them.
So all of you guys have said a lot, right? And all of you guys actually are intertwining into each other, right? So I like how you had brought that back to Ritika and saying, like, okay, this is the rising waters that Ritika definitely talks about. Ishan, how can we afford this car? And and then Davin, how can we be how can these young people be activists into our community? So Davin, could you share with us how you guys started, and I'm pretty sure you guys started activists as their age, and how they can be activists on your platform or any other platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I was 14 when I first got involved with Sunrise and started doing work with them. Before that, I hadn't really done anything political on my own. My family went to protests in DC and wrote letters to legislators, but I was pretty passive in that. And that's something that students and youth often experience. We aren't expected to take action on our own, especially in politics, even though the issues at hand, from climate change to police reform to healthcare inequality, affect youth too, as much as anyone else, and sometimes more. If anyone should be leading the conversation on climate change, it should be youth and students, as the ones who will experience the greatest and most prolonged effects. So in terms of what Sunrise does to help youth get involved, in politics, we're so often left out of the conversation that that's become something of a default, and we don't even tend to notice it. But what Sunrise does is it says, not only do you have a chance to be heard by legislators and CEOs and those in power, but you also have the right to be listened to. And that's incredibly empowering. And if they won't listen, we march in the streets, we make phone calls, we come together in a coalition of youth and students with the power to make the political conversation change to what needs to be discussed. And we support and uplift candidates and businesses that don't sell off our futures and respect our right to involvement. And it's scary to do that. It can mean arguing against elected officials, speaking publicly about the need for action, approaching strangers on the streets, or knocking doors. It means not following the role that society places us into by default, that we'll be passive and sit back while decisions are made about us. But by pushing those boundaries, stepping out of comfort zones, I really believe we can find a hope and community that we would never have had otherwise. The friends and connections that you make through Sunrise, the kind of deliberate and informed optimism that comes from taking action, what we call in Sunrise radical hope. It leaves you more confident and better able to engage in the world and take action for what you believe in on all sorts of levels. And that's really what Sunrise offers, is that community. You can find such satisfaction and fulfillment in taking action with people who believe similarly and break from that script of passivity. It's incredibly rewarding to do that, even if it's scary. And I think it comes in small steps. It starts with, filling out a form to join a hub, or sending a message online, and then it takes you into direct action. And that, really is a way of realizing what you believe in and what you're willing to do for it.
And I thank you for saying that. I know that I'm huge when I tell young voices that you guys deserve a seat at the table. That's why I made it it was very important for me to have you guys on this show, because climate change is definitely affecting us. When I talk about Ritika, you talk about the rising waters and sea levels. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, and where that is 80% is under sea level. And so that's practically all of Florida. And with our rising sea levels, that can definitely affect our community. We have, the flooding that's been happening nationwide is just it's just a lot, and people are losing their homes. Like it was said earlier, people are displaced because of that, and are becoming trying to find refuge in other places that are not familiar to them. So it's really important that we discuss the sea levels. And tell me, how do you what do you see happening in the future of sea level rise, and what will impact be if we do not make changes to how we treat our environment?
Okay, I predict that the future of the rising sea level will change astronomically, and I mean it in a negative way. In the next 20 to 30 years, we might experience 2 to 5 feet of the ocean levels rising, with more people at the coastline susceptible to flooding. Thanks to the emissions in our atmosphere and climate change, we might succumb to this disaster even sooner. And if we don't act now, we might find ourselves on the more susceptible to things like really destructive natural disasters, which is very bad for our environment when relating to climate change.
Thank you for that. And so we also when you talk about the rising levels, Rishabh had said about displacement of people. And so Rishabh, tell us more about that, and how can people get involved in low income people to recover from the impact of global warming?
So when people get displaced, I was saying, right, while they're trying to get jobs or trying to get cars, they have to survive, right? Where's all the money to get the food coming from? And once again, because of climate change comes the droughts, right? And that brings us to less food in the market. And if there's food, like I said with the oxygen concentrator example, it gets really expensive. Well, it's not really a problem. Like if you get milk now, due to the drought, it's now like $10. Poor people are like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna afford this? Rich people are like, oh, just a few more bucks, let me go grab that. But now there's no more milk for the poor. So how will they survive? And we need to think about that. So the government and the community can do a few things to first slow down climate change. So government is already Maryland Governor Hogan. He has a plan by reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030, and he calls this 2030 Greenhouse Gas Emission Reduction Act. And there's also a Paris Agreement that people are writing. I'll try getting more into that. But the Department of Energy is also doing something called the Better Climate Challenge, which organizational leaders join a network to help and do decarbonization to get less, pollution in the air. And if you're wondering, what can the community do? So there's many things actually. They can start campaigning or doing stuff like Recycle My Battery, like Ritika was saying. And we can do something like a sharing economy, like carpooling, sharing kitchen. It's more cost effective. So that also leads me, carpooling. It can also mean riding more buses, which puts less cars on the road. But to make it even better, they can electrify school buses so they can wipe a large percentage of greenhouse gas emissions into the air. And we can also have more renewable energy source jobs, like solar powered based jobs and more solar fields. And the last thing we should do is making reforestation a mandatory task. So this makes it so we have more trees to start cleaning up the environment for us. Thank you.
I love that. That was very thorough. I like that. And to add to that, that is one of the things that they're talking about at the state level is electric school buses. I know that's one of the things I've been advocating for is electric school buses because that will help with climate change. And also you had mentioned about the electric cars. And so that brings us back to Ishan. Now, could you give us one? We have electric buses now.
Yep.
I think in Frederick we do have electric buses, so that does help us a lot, right? Could you tell us what are some incentives that are available for purchase that people do to electric cars besides the tax rebates? What are some incentives that can also be?
So, in addition to these tax rebates that are provided, the long-term cost of owning an electric car is significantly cheaper than a gas car. The upfront price may seem like intimidating to many people, but even if you look on the cheaper end of electric cars, it's just always going to be cheaper than having a gas vehicle. And in addition, one incentive is that if you have an electric car, you have access to HOV lanes, which is very convenient if you're going to work. And building on your guys' points about these electric buses, they're an amazing idea. Electric school buses, electric buses, they should definitely be implemented, and we should definitely go towards that.
Now, I know that we talked about electric cars. If you've ever been to a Sierra Club meeting or things like that, they also discuss commercial electric commercials. And I know that one of the things that were not discussed in that meeting, but have popped up in people's heads. If people go commercial, like how would that affect our economy? So Pepsi had electric trucks. Would they rise the prices of buying Pepsi? I don't know. Would the delivery become more expensive? Could you answer that question? Do you know how that would be incentive?
I'm not super sure how it would affect like the commercial industry and the economy and stuff, but I'm talking about like an individual's perspective. Their expenses would go down. Some big companies, they might not benefit from it. I'm not really sure. But from an individual's standpoint, it would be cheaper.
Davin, have you guys talked about that before, about commercial vehicles being electric?
It's not something I've discussed too much in detail, actually. Although I can say that there's been some legislation passed recently about governmental electrification of vehicle fleets, which is very exciting. And I can't imagine that it would not be cost-effective for companies, considering that the long-term cost is so much lower. I think probably it's just inertia in terms of if you have a big fleet, the upfront cost is exponentially greater, even if the returns are positive.
Yeah. And someone said in the chat, yes, more trees. We could talk about those trees right now, right? If we look at Frederick, how they're tearing down the trees, like in a very rapid pace, right? Like we have people, they're tearing down the trees to build new development, all these new things. I mean, we the Bears don't have anywhere to stay no more. It's just like it's becoming a little bit out of control. How can you, Rishabh, how do you feel that we should take care of those trees? Like, what do we need to do?
So I was just about to say, like, I don't know if people are following this or not, but when I was little, I learned that it was a phrase, cut down a tree, plant 3. So, like, just in case 2 of them fail, that last one grows, or we get more trees. Happy win-win. So, this deforestation being so rapid, like, this is actually stopping our air to be purified. You know how our trees take in greenhouse gas emissions and then they give us the oxygen? Less of that means us having to breathe more polluted air, and that again brings the oxygen concentrator need more expense, not many people being able to afford them, and once again people are left in the dust. And I just wanted to say, to help the poor, I mean, we could also make clean energy, like the new energy, accessible and affordable. Like right now, that's it. Like these electric cars are expensive, but in the long term, if you use these electric and new energy sources, you'll be happy. I mean, more pure air. And we can also, you know how I said people aren't able to get a job? How about we increase employment opportunities and economic equality? And what I mean by economic equality is here's an example. So, if a man goes to the same job and gets $50 an hour, I was just researching that a woman, if she does the same job, she'll get 20 an hour. That's not supposed to be right. They should get the same amount of money for the same job. And this is the most important thing I should always think about. Make disaster preparedness a priority. Like, always be prepared for those natural disasters. And that's what I wanted to say about how to be ready for these natural disasters due to climate change.
That is some good points. I like that. Being proactive and not reactive when it comes to disasters. That is so important. And you touched on another topic about equal pay. That's a whole nother beast. Okay, so we're not even gonna get on that topic. So that is very true. About how do you guys feel about solar panels being on low-income homes, being on HUD homes, being on those type of things? How do you guys feel about solar panels? Yep, you guys like that idea? You guys like that idea? Yeah.
They're already in use, but people aren't using them the way they should. They don't use them that often. Mostly nowadays they still use fossil fuels, and that's the exact same thing that brings this greenhouse gas emissions into the air. People should start using more solar energy, more renewable energy into these energy powered systems.
So Ratika, you had talked about the batteries. So I know that people be like, oh, if I throw it in a recycle bin, it's still being recycled, right? Like they're like, oh, I can just throw it there. In their minds, they're feeling like they're still recycling or some way. Where are the batteries going to? Are they actually recycled if they put it in the recycling bin?
Well, it varies from the amount of batteries, the materials and batteries that are recycled. It varies from like 25% to 96%. In the US, 99% of lead acid batteries are recycled, like actually recycled, and only about 5% of lithium or iron-based batteries are recycled. And then most batteries, like 97%, end up in landfills, which is why we need to spread awareness about the environmental risk of not recycling your batteries.
And so you, Ishan, won the presidential award. Tell us about that.
So that's essentially an award for academic excellence. So in order to get the award, you have to achieve like all A's all years throughout.
Okay.
And and I think there's a requirement for like standardized testing or like the school testing and stuff. You have to do well on those as well.
Now we are going to talk about, Ishan, what are you doing right now when it comes to public transportation, and how are you being an activist for that?
Well, I'm trying to convince more and more people. I've talked to a lot of adults in the community about spreading awareness about how electric transportation needs to be just like spread more. People need to be aware that electric vehicles are like a big thing now and they can move into it. And in addition to electric vehicles, they can promote local transportation, electric bikes, electric scooters, things in cities like that, along with electric buses and school buses. Just talking to people, spreading the word, getting it out there.
I think I've seen a lot of electric bikes lately. Have you guys seen those? Yeah, the electric bikes and electric scooters. And I think those are pretty cool. I know if you go into the cities like DC, Baltimore, they do have those little scooters that they like charge you for to ride on. They're probably just taking all of our money, but but they are available. And so that's important. Now, you guys have touched on a lot of things. Rashab, you had said about low income. How do you feel about community gardens and how can they benefit our community?
So I was just about to come to that. Like when I talked about people having a sharing environment, like what I'm trying to say is this could be pretty helpful in terms of getting more, getting more plants out there, or less, reducing the amount of greenhouse gases out there. This is basically resaying what I'm trying to say before. It's actually same topic. What I'm trying to say, more ideas.
I work in the community garden in Lucas Village on Sundays. I help a young lady and she does community gardening. I used to have a community garden discovery also for kids that are under, underserved. And so community gardens are amazing. I love them. They're healthy for the environment and it gives back to them because let's be honest, with the economy rising, the groceries are rising, those healthy foods are also rising and they were already expensive. Now they're becoming more expensive. So that is important. Now, Davin, you've heard all these young voices. So I'm pretty sure you're going to be getting connected with them to kind of like help you along with advocating for them and definitely teaching them how their voices could be used at the legislative level, right? So when you do testimonies and things like that, I'm pretty sure Davin can discuss that. Davin, what work have you guys done so far in the community and what legislations have you guys worked on in past?
Yeah, so lots of things. Right now, with the upcoming primary election, which there is still time to register in, so everyone watching should definitely make sure that they've done that. But yeah, with the election, we're focused on turning out the vote for our endorsed candidates, House of Delegates, including Terry Lynn Thrasher, County Council and Executive, and Board of Education, which is an extremely important race this year and often neglected from the political conversation. So that means hitting the streets and hitting the phones. This month alone, students and other volunteers with Sunrise Frederick have knocked hundreds of doors in town, having conversations with prospective voters, which is just a fantastic way to spread the message of what we're doing and help get people involved politically. Frederick City has, while it does lean progressive, it has absolutely abysmal voter turnout. And so just by having those conversations, you can have an incredibly impactful effect on the political conversation. In the past, we've also organized lots of rallies, some as part of Sunrise national campaigns and some for specifically local issues. We've spoken at public hearings, including advocating for the passage of the climate emergency resolution in Frederick, which did pass and has since led to some really excellent governmental legislation, like the slate of environmental initiatives that was passed by the County Council recently, including more funds for electrification and whatnot. We've made phone calls and organized bulk letter writing to legislators advocating for a Green New Deal, which I mentioned.
Give him 1 minute. Probably his service. Let's give him a minute to come back in. Okay, yes. As Davin said, that they do help a lot of political candidates. I'm one of those candidates they did endorse. And so to make sure that we make big change into Frederick. And I know it's so important that I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be asking one of you kids for testimony in Annapolis. So please know it's going to come back full circle. And I'm going to hope that you guys can be so vocal in saying that what needs to change, because you guys have made some great points. Now, the New Year's coming up and you guys are going to be doing some great work. I want each one of you to tell me while we wait for Davin to come back, how can kids get involved with what you're doing and the specific issues that you're doing? Because Ratika, I put your information up, so we definitely know we're going to put that up again. But Ishan, how can kids get involved with what you're doing if you're doing any great things next year for kids to be involved in?
Well, the easiest way to get involved in this whole like electric transportation thing is to just spread the word to other people. We could tell other people how electric vehicles really do make a big impact and how they really have a lot of benefit, and how we can talk to the government, talk to your county, and see if they're interested in moving to more electric.
Am I coming through now?
Buses.
Yeah.
We got you. So hold on 1 minute, Davin. Were you done, Ishan?
Sure.
No. Finish. Go ahead and finish, Ishan.
Yeah, go ahead.
how like promoting electric school buses especially is a great thing to move forward, and how it's one of the steps we can take to move towards more electric transportation.
Like, just adding on to what Ishan said, like, one of the easiest things to, as kids, like, what we can do is conserve water and electricity, and when needed, we can also share with others. So that's just something I wanted to mention.
That's a good point. That means everybody's watching. Tell your kids to cut the water off if they're not using it, and cut the lights off, and cut the lights off if they're not using it, and use LED lights instead of. But there's a lot of things you can do to like help within the house, just as kids. You know what I mean? So definitely, and so and like Davin said, you can get involved. He got involved at 14. So you guys can get involved also with organizations like Sunrise Frederick and all those organizations. You have so many that you can. Progressive Maryland, everybody, all of them are definitely intertwined. Our Revolution, all of them are intertwined and figuring out ways that we can be more progressive about making change in our community when it comes to climate change, right? And so, climate change can create jobs. Climate change can help us live longer. Climate change can improve the economy. It all goes hand in hand. So all these issues are definitely going to come full circle when it comes to what our globally we're going to look like in 10 years. I could say 5 years, because right now it's starting to look very different, and a lot of people are suffering from that, right? So do you guys have anything else you want to add? And let's see if anybody has any questions from the audience. The audience, you guys can also ask these wonderful guests any questions that you would like. If you, in how you guys can get involved with them, and what their take is on any issues that are important to you. And so please know that if you are not able to vote, if you have family that are able to vote, please let them know that it's important to vote, in making sure that we can get some great work done. Okay. Davin, do you have any information you want to provide to the audience of like how they can get involved with you guys in any way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So anyone who's been interested in what I've been saying or who wants to learn more should absolutely get in touch with us, and we can go from there. It's a perfectly good place to just like start organizing without any experience. That's how most of us begin, and it's a really there's no better time than now to do that. And even if you're not sure if you want to get involved but would like to learn more, maybe you want to join our mailing list, or if you're going to be voting in the primary and want to find out which candidates we've endorsed, then you should definitely get in touch with us. You can follow and message us on social media. On Instagram, we're at Sunrise Frederick. On Twitter, we're at SMVMT Frederick. And you can email us at sunrisemovementfrederick@gmail.com. And you can do all of that also at our link tree, which I've just put in the chat for Terralyn, but that's linktr.ee/sunrisefrederick. Yeah, I'd encourage everyone to find us on social media and join our mailing list at least. And if you're interested in being involved, please sign up to join the hub, and we'll have a conversation about what that could look like for you. And also,
Now, go ahead.
Just also, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to get in touch or put them in the chat.
Now, Ratika, let me ask you a question. There was a question asked in the audience. So we have this thing called recyclable battery, like reusable rechargeable batteries. How healthy are they for the environment, and would you recommend those? And can that reduce the battery waste?
I feel like rechargeable batteries are a great idea, but there are some things we need to think about, such as the cost, because I don't think the whole world will be using rechargeable batteries, which still leaves more batteries to go into waste, and also the materials used in those rechargeable batteries, such as there's very harmful pollutants that actually cause climate change from batteries, like cadmium, lithium, lead, etc. So we really need to think about what goes in those rechargeable batteries, and if it's worth it to spend that much money on trying to make climate change reduce.
So basically, you're saying that what's being used in rechargeable batteries is not good for the the earth anyway. So
No, if
they're
it
using
was to find itself in the trash, we would still get all that waste coming from the landfills into the air.
yeah. Thank you for that. Are there any more questions? Okay, what makes them hopeful? Okay, what makes you guys hopeful for the future of climate change and any new technology? Everybody can answer that. So we're gonna let the youngest go first. What makes you hopeful for the future of climate change and any new technology?
So now that we're already thinking about it and we're already live on Facebook and people are getting this, people might keep thinking about this more seriously. Like, we might be past the pandemic today, but climate change is still here. And we're not going to get out of it if we all don't work together. And that's why I think more people right now, they're thinking about it. They're going to take our examples, what we use to do stuff in our own community, like Ritika's rechargeable battery thing. And like what I said about carpooling, electrifying school buses, this could most probably fix the problem with our climate change today. And recycling back onto my, what was I saying? Community garden. So I just thought that it would be nice to say I know a couple of my neighbors and friends. They're already doing this community garden thing, and I just found out about that and brought it up. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yay! So, Ishan, tell me what makes you hopeful for the future of climate change, and especially your technology on electric cars that one day I'll be able to get.
Well, adding to that, what Vilo said, the main thing I'm looking forward to is people really starting to realize that electric cars, electric transportation is the future. So as we move into the future, more and more bigger companies like Toyota and Honda are slowly going to start to get more and more involved in this whole industry of electric transportation. And as more and more companies get involved, the prices will drop as there's more and more electric cars, and they'll become a really feasible option for all people. So I'm looking forward to that happening in the future.
I'm sorry, Ratika. Thank you for that, Ishan, and I am excited about that as well. So, Ratika, tell me what makes you hopeful for the future of climate change and any new technology.
What I'm most hopeful for is the acts of the students or other people who are watching this. I want people to try to get involved with this cause because, going back to what Ishan said, I think the best thing anyone can do to help stop climate change is to spread the word. And going back to what Rishabh said, I'm actually also a part of that planting thing that we're doing. When basically what we do is in empty areas in Frederick, we just plant some shrubs, some trees every once a month or so. So I really encourage people to try to plant some trees and shrubs in Frederick.
And Davin, could you tell me what makes you hopeful for the future of climate change and any new technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. What makes me hopeful is the substantive political progress that we've seen recently. I mean, when Sunrise first brought the Green New Deal onto the political field in 2016, it was basically a non-issue that virtually no one had heard of. And by the 2020 election, the majority of Democratic presidential candidates were talking about it and in favor of it. And that kind of trend that a political grassroots movement can affect is just incredibly inspiring to me, especially when it's youth-led. You know, on a local level in Maryland, we passed recently the Climate Solutions Now Act in the state legislature, which is an incredibly ambitious win. By 2023, more than 600,000 homes in Maryland will be powered by offshore wind. You know, this is really substantial progress that we really don't hear as much about because people love to hear bad news. And I know there are a lot of people who feel apathetic about politics and climate change, or who care and don't know how to get involved. But I'm really hopeful that on a local level, by having conversations and making art and building a welcoming, engaged community, we can change that.
Thank you for that. Now we're going to close out with two things. Ishan, I want you to tell me what's the most lowest cost electric car right now.
So I think as of right now, the cheapest electric car you can buy is a Nissan Leaf, which is about $27,000 dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like I think the cheapest like mass produced electric car. There's probably a few like lesser known brands that have electric cars that are cheaper. But going into the future, when Honda and Toyota make like cheaper electric cars, the price will definitely go down from that.
And it's probably not even fun to drive. I'm sorry. They might be safe to drive, but are they fun to drive? Do they go like really fast, or they go really like?
Oh, because electric cars have instant torque. I mean, most drive.
I'm just joking. I've seen that car. It's really cute. And Rishma, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention before we close out. So, do you guys mind if I read the poem that I was mentioning in the beginning?
So, Rishma, you need to get out of my head because that's what I was going to ask you to do. So, I was going to ask you to read that poem for us before we closed out. So, if you could please read the poem for us.
Okay. So, let me open it. Okay. Here it goes. As the trees are reducing, the more pure air we are losing. As Mother Nature is making a fit, people think it won't hurt a bit. Leaves make sugar to eat. They make sure Earth doesn't overheat. Your furniture comes from the tree's wood, but the way you get it isn't good. We realize pollution isn't okay. It just blackens each day. The trees help us purify the air. We give it CO2, which makes it all fair. The solution to this problem is as simple as this. It is so easy that's impossible to miss. All you have to do is plant trees. It'll give you a relaxing, purified breeze.
Good job. I love it. I am so happy that you guys were on my show. I am honored.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Michelle. That was really cool.
Yeah, I have one last thing, but hopefully she comes back on.
Yeah, joys of remote conferencing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really great to meet you all. I appreciate all the work that you've been doing, and thanks so much for taking the time to share about that.
Thank you. So, I just wanted to get going. I don't know when she'll come back. Oh, I think she's on. So, here are some questions to ask yourself about climate change. So, are there jobs that exist now but may not exist in the next decade? So, you might want to think about that. Or are there food staples that are vulnerable to the effects of climate change that need to be replaced or adapt, like insect populations increasing, etc.? Will housing adapt to the new weather patterns? How will the houses of the future need to adapt or look like to survive these new climate change issues? So you guys should probably think about those questions that I brought up for the audience.
Davin, I'm gonna get him to work on my campaign. Like he's gonna be like in Annapolis with me somewhere.
I just saying good luck with your campaign then.
Oh, thank you. If his parents will let me, I'll just be like, put him in, just be like, hey, this guy right here, just ask him. And if I need Ishan or Ritika, I'll be like, hey, just ask them because it's you guys did amazing. Thank you so much. I definitely am inspired. Davin, you're amazing. You keep doing the great work. You're amazing. Ritika, good luck next year. And Nishan, good luck in high school. And Rishma, good luck in middle school. And all you guys are I love to see kids just doing great things in the community. And you guys are definitely paving the way for other kids. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see the battery program in a lot of schools. I'm pretty sure more people are going to buy that $27,000 car that Ishan talked about. And Rishpa, I'm pretty sure that people are going to do community gardens and think about the low-income families when they think about climate change. And all you guys are going to be part of Sunrise Movement. I'm pretty sure of it. So great job. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much. And you guys have my contact information if you ever need anything, if you ever need a platform or ever need to get connected. I'll make sure that you get connected, okay?
Thanks so much for having us. This was a really lovely conversation.
Thank you. You
Looking
guys
forward
have,
to getting in touch with the rest of you all.
yes,
Thank
Davin,
you.
we'll get in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Asher, for giving me this opportunity to express how I feel about climate change.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
All right, take care, everyone. And thanks
Good
for everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay! They did good. They were so cute. Good job. I was like, oh shit, Brandon today.
I cannot believe you got it. Listen, you had a coughing fit. What happened? You choked? Yes. I was like, oh man. What's his name? Rishma's mom was like, what happened? Where's Carolyn? I was like, she's choking. Show me that. I don't think deadly. Show me that.
They did amazing.
They did a good job.
They did a really good job.
And the kids here did a good job staying quiet.
Oh, but if you want to do the climate thing,